On today's show, Senators hockey is back. We just saw the first three groups come out for day one of training camp.
And we get a boots on the ground report from Sportsnet's newest freelance writer, Alex Adams.
All that plus some organizational value rankings on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, through September 22nd, you can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial with NFL on YouTube and YouTube TV. That's NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube, YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter and LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find us everywhere you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube. Today is Thursday, September 19th, and Pilsy, Jake Sanderson is paired with Travis Hamonic on day one of training camp.
Start the pitch. Should I get the panic button, Ross? I got it right over here. Is it time to panic already? No, that you never know what's going to happen day one. But Ross, I was put at ease when I saw Nick Cousins was on a line with Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. So all is well in Sens land day one training camp lines.
It's a skating day, a lot of conditioning and a lot of battle drills, which we didn't see a whole lot of under the previous coaching staff, at least early on in the season. Can't speak so much for when Jacques Martin took over mid-season, but I think that's great. They've had a summer of summer skates, for lack of a better term, captain skates, a lot of shinny. I don't think there's a lot of open ice hitting in that. And not that this was open ice, but the battles along the boards, all these things that are going to help the Senators in the offensive zone specifically, but also be able to keep the puck on the outside when they're in their defensive zone. I think that's a very good thing to key on day one of training camp. So again, not a whole lot of line combinations. We'll get to some more with Alex Adams in the next segment, but a little bit of news today before training camp got underway on ice. Dustin Tarski, the 2009 World Junior goaltender winning gold in Ottawa, now 15 years later, is on a PTO. So immediately you're like, oh no, who's hurt? Please not Linus Allmark. And no, sure enough, Levy Marilin, who missed the rookie tournament with a minor injury. It's been a confirmed groin injury now, and it doesn't sound like it's long-term. But for the meantime, they want to keep 5 goalies at training camp. Dustin Tarski's in the fold.
Yeah, hey, adding another goalie to the mix, that's always good. He spent last year with the Rochester Americans, played 24 games there. So, and 35-year-old goalie, good to get some veteran experience as well. So, yeah, I like it. And
we also are available anytime if the Senators want goaltenders that are just there as shooter tutors.
I've got my gear. I've got my new, where is it? I've got my new mask from Doodling Daryl over here. So, I'm ready to go. I mean, I might pull my adductor muscle a couple minutes into training camp, but I'll be there.
I'm so excited for this season to get underway. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. All summer, we're like, hey, we're not going to set any expectations.
Oh,
we're just going to pray.
What are you about to say, Ross? What are you getting into here?
I'm just saying that I have a level of hope and optimism that if you had told me in late April that I would feel this way, I would have called you crazy.
Well, how do you feel?
I feel fantastic. I think playoffs, no doubt.
Yes, there it is.
No, I truly feel that. Look at the goaltending. Look at the move. Anyways,
Ross, usually I rain on your parade or try to pull you down from the clouds. Stay up there, buddy. Enjoy the view. If that's yeah, there you go. If you feel fantastic and you think playoffs, no doubt, who am I to stop you?
I'm ready, buddy. I'm ready for a great season of Sens hockey. We'll be with you every step of the way. Shout out to the GLEBE Central Pub. We are officially back. The postcast is back, Pilsy. Season 3. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, the postcast, honestly, is one of my favorite parts of doing this show because as much as I love the draft, free agency, talking about non-hockey things, I just love chopping up a game immediately after. So the postcast is back better than ever. We're going to see a lot of our pal at Leams Martian joining us, and thank you to the Glebe Central Pub for continuing to support us.
Absolutely. You'll see some Jack Richardson sprinkled in there as well. And Glebe Central Pub is going to have some amazing features this season for Senators fans. Preseason, regular season, God willing playoffs. If you take a photo with the new framed GCP jersey that we got for our people at the Glebe Central Pub, if you take a picture there and post it on social media and tag us and the Glebe Central Pub, 2 pints of GCP lager for $7.79. Not each, total. That's an amazing deal, and you can get that on game days at the GCP.
All right. Wait, I want to say one more thing about it, Ross. You know, this is that Locked On GCP jersey is gonna become a landmark in Ottawa. You know how each city has like a landmark, like I think Nashville, there's those angel wings where everyone lines up to get the Instagram photos.
Yeah, in Toronto, it's just a pile of garbage on the side of the road downtown.
Sure. But in Ottawa, everybody's going to want to get a picture with the Locked On GCP jersey because it looks so good in the spot they put it.
It looks so good. I'll pull it up right now. While I do this, would you like to announce who will be joining us tomorrow on the show?
Yes, Ross. Speaking of grabbing some beers, Big Rig, number 4. Yeah, look at how good that is. A table for 2 in the shine of the Locked On GCP jersey, 779 Bank Street.
It's the Lovebird seats at the GCP right there. Love our friends at the GCP, 779 Bank Street. Pilsy, Chris Phillips on tomorrow's show. Unreal.
Yeah, we're so fired up. Most games played as an Ottawa Senator player, and he has stories for the ages, and he gets into a few of them. So look out for that episode. Ross, I'm going to assume is going to be an early drop, as you cannot help yourself but drop big interviews earlier than expected.
I just need to get this out to the people, so it will drop early in the morning. And this being a late episode too, this will carry us through the weekend. And then Monday we'll have preseason hockey to discuss and dissect. So lots of great things coming up on Locked On Sens. We also have our organizational value rankings. We got 8 more coming today. So first, a boots on the ground report with Alex Adams coming up. And on the other side, our organizational value rankings, where after today, the top 30 includes top-end prospects and all the NHL players remaining. So stay tuned for that and more. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. Mary J's is a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area. Started off 3 best friends going after their dreams, and with hard work and dedication, they now have 4 stores in the Ottawa area. You can check them out in Riverside South, Orleans. Ross and I have been there. Awesome store. Greeley and Russell. Mary J's offers the best and newest products in the market. They're always adding new stuff to the menu to keep it fresh. They got everything you need, whether you're a rookie looking to dip your toe in, or you're a grizzled vet and you already know what you want and you want to be in and out of there quickly. Mary J's offers competitive pricing. In fact, they're going to price match any store in Ottawa. It's a no-brainer to go to Mary J's location. Mary J's offers the best customer service around by having friendly bud tenders who are always ready to help out. One of the owners, Dashi, absolute beauty, diehard Sens fan, is usually at one of the stores. So go to the stores, Mary J's, say what up to Dashi, pick his brain about the Sens and all the latest, greatest products that Mary J's has to offer. Check it out today, guys. Mary J's Dispensary.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. It's also our sportsbook here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and for great reason. Over with FanDuel, you can also bet on everything, but also something different. Now through the end of the weekend, September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. We also love looking at futures. Pilsy, how about Travis Green having the second best odds for the Jack Adams?
Yeah, that's a good one. Anytime you get a new coach on a team with now, according to Ross Levitan, playoff aspirations and a new goalie, that's a recipe for a Jack Adams award. So I'll be putting a couple shekels on that one.
only behind Sheldon Keefe. So you can go to FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, Pillsy, we got a very special guest jumping on with us for a boots on the ground report from day one of Ottawa Senators training camp. You might remember him the first time he came on, Sens Central Citizen. He had the jersey on. He was looking very, very much into the fandom. And now he's a freelance writer with Sportsnet. You're going to be able to read all his work all year long. It's Alex Adams. Alex, first off, congratulations, man. So well earned to see your rise over the last 3 years. It's hard work, it's dedication, and it's great to see it paying off.
Well, thank you so much, guys. You guys have actually played a little bit of a role in that. So I want to thank you dearly from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, just I'm not a guy that gets too amped. Maybe I need to take a little bit out of, Brady Tkachuk and do like more of a selly and stuff like that, especially now that he's a dad. But yeah, I'm pretty excited, and it was a really interesting day today at the first day of training camp with the Senators.
So tell us about the vibe at the rink. This is where Ross and I are always jealous that we're not in town because we would love to be there. So what was the vibe from your sense?
I will just say the vibes were good, but I think, being around a training camp, it's always good. Everyone is, their own version of a positive Pillsy. Nothing bad has happened yet. There hasn't been any games, of course. But the thing that, talking to, I spoke to Drake, I spoke to Sanderson, Pinto, it's hard, right? That's what they keep saying. It was a tough training camp. Travis Green was not mincing words on the ice. He was quite direct with his players. Coaching wasn't, just being a tough ass or anything like that, but very different from DJ Smith, where he's really directing players, putting them, I wouldn't say in their place, but pretty hard on them. And I think that's what we're going to kind of see going forward, is a pretty tough coach in Travis Green. And it was in full effect, a couple expletives yelled out there, and bag skate as well, which was really interesting. Brady Tkachuk was kind of, I overheard him right before the bag skate. He's like, Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators, just to the guys on the ice right before he was starting, because he was ready to kind of go through his lumps on the ice. So overall, I think you could just tell the tenor of the training camp was quite different from DJ Smith and a bit to Jacques Martin, but so it'll be interesting to see how this team reacts to it.
So the flow of the day, there were skates at, I believe, 10, 12, 2, whatever the case may be. Was it the exact same practice for all three groups? How did the flow of the day go?
Yeah, it was the exact same practice for all of them. They ended on bag skates. They kind of did the typical like one-on-one. Then they did a couple, battle drills as well. Allmark looked pretty steady. Stützle did one kind of dipsy doodle dangle around Eliasson for a beautiful goal, and like everyone kind of screamed out as one would watching that goal. But overall, it was the same repetition for the group. It wasn't anything different from group one or group two, and it was the thing was just you could tell how forceful Green was in kind of all the interactions, really directing players. He went at Nick Cousins a little bit, but just being like, you need to do this and go that, and right. So it was good to see, because it really felt that he was trying to kind of be in it all and really trying to direct his team the way he wants them.
So normally training camp, first time on the ice, all fans are refreshing Twitter, being like, what are the line combos? Who's playing with who? It seems like we didn't get a whole lot of that, aside from your tweet about 3 forward lines and then some D pairs. But the one I got to ask you about, and you just mentioned him, Nick Cousins. Did he look out of place playing with Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle? Because I don't think, Ross, we've talked about Nick Cousins, where we think he's going to play on this team. I don't think either of us even thought in our minds that Nick Cousins would ever be on a line with Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle.
I don't think that's something that's going to be the case moving forward. It's clear, if you watch the press conference with Green, he's kind of trying to mix and match his players. I think that's what we will probably talk about, maybe the deep pairings as well, that were quite all over the place. It does seem, though, just talking to him just an hour ago or so, that he has, there's something kind of that he's trying to do Like he's being very thoughtful, even though the lines with, for example, Nick Cousins don't really make any sense on opening night, but that he's trying to see how players do well together. And he emphasized that he wanted Brady and Tim to be together. And I think he maybe just added another player in Nick Cousins onto that line.
Well, let's keep in mind, though, that Nick Cousins is no stranger to playing with a Tkachuk. There was that playoff run, not this year, but last year, where he went up and played with Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. So he's been the third guy in a top 6 line before, and it worked then. So I don't hate trying it, and at least showing Timmy and Brady, like, the one thing Nick Cousins is never going to cheat you on his effort. So get the wheels going and say, this is how we're planning on playing. I'm surprised it wasn't a Perron maybe or an Amadio, those other vets that were brought in. But hey, not too shabby, at least on day one of camp, if the plan is to go with duos and then kind of add a third guy on there. My question, it doesn't have to be a long answer. I'm just so curious. Where was Nikolai Kuhlman lined up today?
He was just kind of with a bunch of AHL players, kind of going back and forth, kind of mixing and matching on kind of the fourth line, let's say, of training camp. So he didn't have a huge effect, but he was doing well on the bag skates. I will tell you that he was coming first on the bag skates. So that's old man strength.
First place.
That's not that surprising though, because we've seen he's been working out with Matty Nichols for a while, so he's keeping him in shape. Yep.
There you go. Okay. See, that's the kind of info we wanted. Nikolai Kuhlman, great bag skater.
Exactly. And Zach McEwen was he looked big. So he was really bent over backwards. Carter Yakemchuk was bent over backwards at the end too. So the guys were really, really feeling it. Like you could see that they were winded, they were tired. Some people like Jake Sanderson, who I talked to after, he was just like,
didn't break a sweat.
He didn't break a sweat, and he was just beating guys up and down the ice. But as
do you remember when Craig Button told us that he had some Scott Niedermayer in him, and people laughed at us? Like he plays the game in a rocking chair, but he's faster than everybody else. It's we just did a FanDuel ad read tomorrow. I'm bringing you back to the future, people. We may have recorded tomorrow's episode already. Chris Phillips coming tomorrow. However, with that in what I was saying, I have no idea where I was going with that. I'm sure. What
I was just going to say was just that Josh Norris called Jake Sanderson the Hulk today, called him shredded. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. That's what he looked like. And even just talking to him, you could tell, I think he weighed in at like 203, and you could tell just talking to him today, one-on-one with him, that, you know, he's a bit bigger than he was before, and not that he was slight or anything before.
Of course, Alex has to give a great quote there. So I'll leave in that clap. I was going to reset, but I do remember it's plus 12,000 odds for Jake Sanderson to win the Norris Trophy. So go check that over on FanDuel. Defensive pairs, Chabot and Yakemchuk. That's interesting.
I know, Green was kind of asked about that, and he said, you know what, I'm just kind of putting guys together. But he did think that Yakemchuk, when I asked him like what player stood out, he said Yakemchuk. But at the same time, he also said, I'm not trying to single out players as well. But I thought Yakemchuk just on the puck looked really well, really poised. And I think, you know, there was one moment at training camp where him and Chabot was clearly telling him something and kind of directing him and teaching him something. And we're probably talking for maybe 30 seconds. So I think that's probably why Green put him with Chabot, was maybe for a little bit of that leadership, a bit of that that Chabot can provide to Yakemchuk. So it was nice to see, and maybe in a couple of years that's going to be the D pairing of the future for this team.
Boys, I just feel so old now. Like, doesn't this photo, if you're watching on YouTube, just feel like yesterday, where a young Thomas Chabot was learning from Erik Karlsson in training camp? Like, now Chabot's the veteran, and he's got the young first-round pick under his wing. So love to hear that. Pilsy?
Let's get Alex back in here. Yeah, there we go. Final question for me is, we got to talk about the man of the hour, Brady Tkachuk, the new father coming into training camp. Like, it seemed like he had a glow about him. Like, obviously Brady Tkachuk always has that kind of aura, and you know he's around, and usually he's in a great mood. But tell us about what it was like interacting with Brady. He seemed like he was having a great time.
He was having a great time. He joked that, you know, it took a bit longer than they wanted, but, you know, Emma was a trooper and she got it done, kind of thing, which was quite funny to hear. But yeah, he was
like hockey slang, like, hey, she battled through it.
I know. Exactly. But no, you could tell that maybe, I don't know if this is the right word because I didn't see him throughout the whole summer, but it seemed though that, there was maybe a bit of a weight off his shoulders, just that he's now a father. And I think, what Allmark said about any tips for Brady, said, just tell him that it's a shit show and be ready for it. And I think, maybe hopefully that's not too much of the case for Brady, but you could tell that there's just like a looseness, he's just very friendly, and he always is. He's a very nice guy, as you guys know, but I think I wonder how that maybe impacts his mentality, because he kind of alluded to it, but Allmark said, when I get home, I see my kids and I play better because everything at home is going well. And I wonder if that's maybe something to be said for Brady, just with his home life really settled and locked in, or locked on, that maybe, he'll translate onto the ice, although he did have a very good season last year, and hopefully will this year as well.
Over or under 81.5 points, Alex?
I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over. I do think this team, if this team has a much better power play, which it should have, I think you take the over. And I wonder I don't know what the overs are or under are for his goal tally, but I wonder if it's inching closer to 40. I wonder if I feel like he's on the precipice of becoming a 40 goal scorer.
Well, you can head over to FanDuel.com where it's 36.5. Minus 114 for his goal total over under on the season. Alex, the over is going to smash for your content this year. Super excited to see you on Sportsnet writing for them, sportsnet.ca. You can also follow him on social media, Alex Adams, BTP _. Super happy to have you on the show again. We both were on your show individually this past week, Behind the Play, so people can go check that out for more of us with Alex. Alex, this won't be just the third time. It's the third of many. We can't wait to chat with you again, and congratulations once again on a well-earned promotion.
I think just because you guys are climbing, I'm just trying to get a bit closer to you. So that's my goal. But honestly, in all sincerity, thanks so much for having me on. I'm happy to do this whenever, and hopefully this will be a better year for the team on the ice. And what I'm hoping is they make the playoffs and we get to, hang out a couple times and they play the Leafs, because if they played the Leafs, I think Twitter would burn down in Ottawa. So here's hoping for that, and hopefully it'll be a great season, but I know it will be for you guys as well.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing app of the Locked On Podcast Network, and they got a new feature called Game Time Picks. That makes tickets even easier to get for live events. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to sit there and waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can check out the all-in pricing. Turn on the all-in pricing feature so that you get the cost up front, no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and they have one of the most flexible customer service policies in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
All right, Ilzy, stick taps to Alex for joining us. Great to get some boots on the ground information, and just thinking of Dustin Tokarski's name. We mentioned in the first segment in Ottawa on a PTO. You just think back to that World Juniors and Pierre Maguire going bananas after he made a save. Oh my, Justin Tokarski, what a save. That was amazing memory. You look, Dustin Tokarski's only played 3 games against Ottawa in his career, only 1 win, but how about a .929 save percentage?
Dang. Wow.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Maybe some depth for Belleville, or just depth while Levy Marilin nurses a minor injury. No spoilers, but we might be discussing Levy Marilin a little bit later. We are in our second prospect tier right now in the organizational value rankings. It's the 5th annual organizational value rankings, and we are going to put them all together at the very end and make it one super video that will probably premiere on a Sunday, and you can go check out the chat, hang out, basically if you want to talk Sens anytime that day, leading into the first week of the regular season, head over to YouTube among all the citizens and have your say of how you feel about our list and the season coming up. All right, coming in at number 37 on our organizational value rankings, a new player who was given a new opportunity midway through last season. Jameson Reese joined the Belleville Senators, and I thought he fit in a depth role enough that he earned an extension on his contract.
Yeah, I mean, Jameson Reese, the story for him is he hasn't really been given the proper opportunities in the past. And when you look at where he was before Belleville, you can kind of see that. And even in Belleville, I don't think they quite figured out the proper way to use him. In 51 games in the AHL between 3 different teams, no goals, unfortunately, 8 assists, -4, 22 PIMs. This is a year where Jameson Reese has to figure out a way to get involved. If it's not going to be by scoring points, he's going to have to figure out different ways to impress Coach David Bell in Belleville. And I'm not doubting the talent, Ross. I just think he's going to have to find a way to get back to where he was.
He's a bit of Angus Crookshank, but maybe not with the upside that we've seen that Crooker has, because he does play that snarl, that gritty, that ratty game. But at 5'11", 172 and 23 years old, you do have to bring a little bit of offense to the table as well. And I think he'll get an opportunity here in training camp, both with Ottawa and with Belleville, to show that he has the capability to be a contributing member of an AHL team. Got that 1-year extension, so he's playing for his next contract as well. And he makes his debut in our organizational value rankings at 37. A bit of an unknown, but at the same time, I think that you look at scouts who have watched him from his time as a draft eligible player and then into his first pro season, you're looking at still a guy with some tools that could get him to be an everyday player at least the top 6 AHL level, and we'll see if it translates for there. But I think this is a good spot for a guy who I'm going to be interested in watching this season. You said naturally, though, Pills, he should be a favorite for me, though, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 of your favorite things, Jameson and Reese's Pieces. So Jameson Reese should be a guy you're looking out for, Ross.
I promise I can't just have one Reese. I need the apostrophe S. I need multiple pieces of my Reese's. Okay, he makes his debut at 37. Coming in at number 36, it's Tyler Boucher. We don't need to tell you where he was drafted. What we do need to know is how's he going to look in a full season, because unfortunately injuries have been the story for the 6'1", 205-pound right shot right winger from New Jersey.
Yeah, Ross, I'll even set the bar a little lower for the games played. Let's see what he can do in half a season, because unfortunately his most games played was in 2021, 2022, when he played 24 games with the 67s. Now, he did play 17 games with Boston University before then, so total of 41 games, but it's we don't need to get too far into it. We know Tyler, good kid. He's putting a lot of work in. Just unfortunately, the injury concerns. If you can't play, you can't develop. And that's where Tyler Boucher has found himself. But he seems like he's ready to go. And I think David Bell is going to do a lot to help him out this season.
He's got a great mindset. And that's all you can do when you've been dealt a hand of cards that has some low numbers in it with the time missed during injuries. Last year, he was 23rd on our organizational value rankings. The year before, 17th. And right after the draft, he was 14th. So he comes in at 36, but I think there should be the asterisk that he just needs to play, because when he does play, we saw him at World Juniors, he was actually really good.
Yeah,
before he suffered that injury. And that was his last time really getting a flow before coming in midway through the season and not being able to find his footing too well. So we're rooting for him, man. We're in his corner, and I'd love to see him prove the doubters wrong with a great season this year. But we've covered him extensively this summer, from our top prospects to the rookie tournament. So Tyler Boucher comes in at number 36. He has 2 years left on his entry-level contract that pays him $863 against the cap annually. He had 2 goals, 5 points in 21 games last year. All right, coming in at number 35, a high riser on our organizational value rankings from 57 last year to 35 this year. It's the captain of the Kitchener Rangers, Matthew Andonovski.
Yeah, he had a big year last year, Ross, because before that, he had played in 110 OHL games with 0 goals. So he clearly had the mindset, all right, I've got this figured out defensively. He's a great defensive defenseman. But if I'm going to make a pro career, I have to be able to chip in offensively. And it didn't take long to do that, Ross. He did it on opening night with the Kitchener Rangers last season, and he put 7 goals in 65 games, adds 25 assists, good for 32 points. But the real number here
numbers.
Numbers. Yeah, two big ones coming up. He led the entire OHL in plus minus with plus 58. I don't give a damn what you think about plus minus stats. If you're plus 58, you're doing something right. And he's not making it easy on players when he's up against them either. 124 PIMs too. So this is going to be a huge year for Matthew Andonovski. And Ross, we teased it before, but I've been thinking more about it. I think he could be a dark horse candidate for Team Canada in this World Juniors.
People are saying.
People have said. I've heard people talk about this.
I think we talk about it. People are talking about it. Let's keep it rolling. Let's get a great start to the season for Matthew Andonovski, going back to Kitchener, where he could be a guy who brings that team to a surprising season. They're in their part of their cycle where they're probably looking ahead to the Memorial Cup in a couple of years.
Yes.
Maybe he's a trade chip at some point this season, but we know with the C on his chest, he's going to do everything for that team to get over the hump. But he's already up 22 spots year over year on our list. And his offensive game rounding out what we know brings physicality and defensive responsibility. He's going to be a guy to watch this season in the organization. He just signed his entry-level contract this summer. But by going back to junior, which is in all likelihood what's going to happen, it's either NHL or junior for him, he's going to get to push that to next year. So he'll have all 3 years of his entry-level contract. All right, coming in at number 34, it's Pistol Pete, pew pew, Oscar Pettersson. He was 28th on our organizational value rankings last year, 39th after being drafted in 2022. He came over midway through last season, and much like Jameson Reese, that's tough to play J20, SHL, and Belleville all in 1 year. So I'm excited to see what a full year of Oscar Pettersson under Dave Bell looks like.
Yeah, and I think last year was a really good learning experience for him because David Bell didn't just hand him the keys to the car and said, here you go. He had to deal with being a healthy scratch throughout the playoffs, Ross, and that's tough. And that's something that I think Oscar has looked at and said, how am I going to make sure that I'm providing value in this lineup? And he's focused a lot on his forechecking abilities. And if he can forecheck and keep that play alive in the offensive zone, he's going to have more opportunities to show off the rest of his game, and including that wicked shot that we know he has. So I'm very excited for Oscar Pettersson's season in Belleville.
And just to see where he's at as an offensive threat, because I think that he can always fall back on being responsible defensively. I think we'll see him on Belleville's top penalty killing unit at some point this season, but it's what's your offensive upside? It doesn't have to be the guy who is scoring almost a goal per game in junior, but it can't be the guy who has not much offense either. It has to be at least somewhere in the middle. And he knows that Patrick Hornqvist prototype that he always talks about, being a pain in the ass, being a guy who can play with great players and complement them well. And I think that's what we're going to see Oscar Pettersson try to accomplish this year in Belleville. He's got 3 years left on his entry-level deal at $835,000. All right, coming in at number 33, one of the newer members of the organization, Xavier Borgo, right shot, right winger, 33rd on our list, making his debut this year. He's 21 years old, 6 foot, 172 pounds. Pilsy, the pro career hasn't started the way that his minor league or amateur career ended, where he was just an elite prospect and helped win the QMJHL for Chicoutimi or whatever team he was on.
Shawinigan.
Hey, close.
Yep. I think Borgo is very similar to Jameson Reese. Untapped potential, I think, is a way to look at these players. Because,
well, if there's one thing we know about the CTC, the taps are always ice cold.
Well, we're hoping they heat up here with Borgo and Reese, because people forget he's a first-round pick in 2021, 22nd overall. Ross, we actually covered him in our prospect profiles. But last year with Bakersfield, 55 games, 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points. Obviously not what he's looking for, because the year before he had 34 points in 62 games. So I think he can get closer to that 40-point range if he's put in the right situation. And it's not going to be easy for him. Like, he's coming from Bakersfield, coming to Belleville. This roster is stacked. So if he's going to find a place on power play units or in the top 6, he's going to have to work for it. And I'm excited to see what Borgo can bring in a new opportunity, new scenery, everything like that.
So we already know the Senators have invested more in veterans at the AHL level. Well, get this. Our last 3 players we just talked about, Borgo, Pettersson, Boucher, all right shot, right wingers who will be in Belleville. So there's going to be a lot of internal competition for those roles on the right side. Borgo, for me, is a guy who just needs to be able to be more consistent. There were a couple 2-point games he had last year out of his 20 points. And it's just, there's a lot of stretches where he goes a month without getting a point. And it's like, okay, we need to find a level of consistency. And who knows, that organization in Edmonton, they're obviously not majorly focused on developing prospects. They're looking at winning now. Now, that to say, they end up getting Roby Yarventi in that trade. Yep. And I'll go on record, I wouldn't have done that trade. I think Yarventi's got a lot of high upside talents within his game. Borgo, jury's out. Maybe he does too, but I think he's going to bring a little more speed and tenacity on the puck that Yarventi certainly didn't have. He was more of that Hoffman-esque, hey, I'm a shooter, I'll shoot, but otherwise it's not maybe as well-rounded of a game. But we'll see what Borgo's got on the table. He'll be a guy who I have circled through preseason in the NHL to see where he's at. And it's also contract year for him, Pilsy. He's going into the final year of his first contract at $925K.
Yep. On to the next guy.
Some coming in at number 32. You wanted to get to him because it's a goalie. We got another goalie. Our third goalie on the list. We had Vladimir Nikitin at 51, Kevin Radler at 50, and now coming in at 32, it's Levy Marilin, 6'2", 158 pounds.
That is light. That is a light goalie coming in. Ross, I was saying to you, that's about my dimensions when I was in grade 11 in high school. So certainly skinnier goalie than usual. You want to get that surface area up, get a little more mass on him. Maybe Ridley Gregg can share some of his protein shakes that he was famous for carrying around when he was trying to get the weight up. But one thing Levy Marilin doesn't have to worry about is that this is an organization that has shown they have faith and value him, because they had a 3-headed monster in Belleville with Sogard, Marilin, and Mando. Mando, the odd guy out, and they kind of nod to Marilin and, hey, this is going to be a big year for you. And probably not the season Marilin had wanted. 10-9-1 record with Belleville last year, 287, 906. So not bad numbers for your first full season in Belleville, but definitely something he can improve on. He only got the one playoff game at the end there, but showed really well. 931 save percentage in that one, 27 saves on 29 shots against the Cleveland Monsters. But I've got a lot of faith in Levy Marilin. I think right now he's dealing with a groin injury, so we'll see how that goes, and hopefully he's ready when the season starts here. But a third-round goalie being ranked this high, pretty interesting.
I think it's super interesting, and he also, in his stint with the Allen Americans in the ECHL, just showed I have no business being in this league. 926, I believe, save percentage, and he was awesome down there. So I think this will be great, too, because this is the first year where Levy's been stable. And he's like, I'm going to be here at least for the next year, probably 2 or 3, because he obviously came over after being drafted out of Finland Junior, came over and played in the OHL, then went back to Finland, then went here and had that up and down season. So I think for him, knowing where he's going to be and going forward within the organization, I think will be important for him. He was 26 last year on our list, 33 the year before, 29 the year before that, and 44 right after he was picked early in the 3rd round in 2020. So he's one of the 17 players on this list who's been ranked every single year. And I think we've kind of found our median for him, where it's kind of in the late 20s, early 30s, and he can really help himself next year with a good season in Belleville, where I hope he plays upwards of 30, 32 games, helping out Sogard with a 2-headed tandem there.
Yeah, and I think that's very reasonable. So Marilin, big season coming up, and he's a guy throughout his whole career, breakaways, penalty shots, shootouts, one-on-one, he dominates. So that's a shootout specialist goalie is always nice to have.
He's going into a contract year, 1 year left at $820,000. All right, at the top of this prospect here, we have a couple left, but at the top of this tier, one more away. We got first 31. It's Jorian Donovan, who I should have just continued on by that, saying the most improved prospect in the Senators pipeline. You could argue Andonovski.
I was going to say, yeah.
What Jorian Donovan did, man, the offensive numbers, he put up 13 goals in 66 games, had a phenomenal playoff, won the Memorial Cup, played World Juniors. Like what he did to elevate himself from 5th round pick to legit prospect, I think is a year ahead of what Andonovski did. Maybe Ando does that this year, but he's 31 on our list, was 39 the year before, and 46 2 years ago. Pilsy, he is showing that he could be that kind of all-around steady defenseman, but that has some pop in the offensive zone.
Yeah, definitely. He had a huge year and is well-deserved of the rise in our value ranking, something I'm sure he covets, knowing that he bumped up 15, or no, not 15 spots. 5 spots. But with Donovan, like, look at the fact that the Saginaw Spirit targeted him as a guy to bring in for their Mem Cup run, right? Like that's in junior, when you have a chance at the Mem Cup, you got to push all your chips in. You got to identify the right guys that are going to get you there. They do that with Donovan and they win the Mem Cup. So absolutely huge. And like you mentioned, he's figured it out defensively, offensively. He's got a bit of grit to his game as well. So I'm so excited about the season Jorian Donovan's going to have.
I don't know if any other people around hockey like winners, but here on Locked On Senators, we like winners. And he's got a Memorial Cup title and an OHL title that he won back with the Hamilton Bulldogs under Steve Staios and Michael Andlauer's regime. So he's kind of got a bit of the old regime in him, being the son of Sean Donovan, being drafted by Pierre Dorion, but then obviously he has connections with the new regime as well. Really excited to see how he transitions into pro hockey. He will start his entry-level contract. He's got 3 years at $797,000. Here's a guy who has made the jump from 7th round pick to number 30 on our organizational value rankings. It's Maxence Gannett. I think when you look at Gannett's game and the improvements all around, he took a step back in the points per game total this year. He had 40 last year, down to 34. Now he played more games, sure.
Yeah.
But I think what you're seeing is a more well-rounded defender, and I'm excited to see him. He's a guy where Staios always mentions him. Dorion did too, as this dark horse right shot defenseman, where if it can all come together, he's already gotten a little taste of NHL games. I think he could be a call-up option this year.
Yeah, and Gannett's another guy, Ross, that I feel like Sens fans kind of gloss over and forget. But like you mentioned, 2 years ago, he had 40 points as a defenseman in the AHL, and 34 points in 58 games is not bad at all either. That got him deservedly a call-up 7 games in Ottawa. And you're looking at a right shot defenseman that can bring some offense to his game here, and the value at finding someone that you drafted in the 7th round, 187th overall, that's already providing NHL games and is a very effective AHL player. That's the diamond in the rough type picks you're looking to make in the 7th round. So Gannett is a very exciting prospect.
Last year, Gannett was 37th on our OVRs. The year before, he was 44. He was 44 in 2021 as well, and 43 in 2020. So that's kind of cool that we can see this extended progression, because it was, 2019 pick, and then he stays kind of stable. And now the last 2 years, really making his move up the charts. And this year he was named to the AHL All-Star game. Unfortunately, an injury didn't allow him to participate in San Jose. But Max Gannett with, I think, an opportunity here to make the jump. Now, when we look at what's next for Gannett, what do you think the most important thing is for him to work on this upcoming season?
I mean, he's got the offense figured out, so I definitely don't think that's an issue. I would say, Ross, you probably want to see him be a little bit more physical. I mean, he's got the frame for it. 6'3", 196 pounds is what I've got him at. Oh, is this the dimensions from what the Sens put out? So a little,
he shrunk.
A little smaller than that, I guess. Interesting difference there, 6'1", 181. But either way, I want to see him play a little bit more of a physical game. He's got a taste of the NHL with 8 total games. He knows what he's going to have to do to play up against men and the best in the league, in the world, I should say. So I think the physicality might be something that he's going to have to improve on.
And he just signed a 1-year extension at $775,000. We're looking forward to seeing what Max Gannett has in store this upcoming season. All right, another great segment of organizational value rankings. I'm so excited that we get to do this each and every year. We never take it for granted that we have this opportunity to connect with so many great Ottawa Senators fans. And Pilsy, I look forward to continuing the OVRs next week, because tomorrow we got to roll out the red carpet. It is all Chris Phillips all the time. Cannot wait for you guys to hear this great interview. You want to give a little tease for the people?
Yeah, I mean, Phillips was awesome. He has so many stories. Like, Ross, we got to have him on again to dive into some other things we didn't get to, but he tells us a lot about Anton Volchenkov. This is one you're going to want to wait for. What his favorite Senators jersey that he ever wore, because he wore a lot of them from 1996 to 2015.
Yep.
So that's an interesting answer as well.
Dude, 19 years as a member of the Ottawa Senators. Sens have made the playoffs 16 times. He's been a part of 14 of them.
Yeah. Wow.
That's awesome. Great conversation coming tomorrow. We'll keep you posted on Twitter at Sens Central about all the latest at training camp. Thank you to Alex Adams for joining us. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.